Welcome to selfdiscoveryradio.com, where the orchard of wisdom is just ready for picking. We celebrate your why, the journey that you've taken that inspires someone else. We support your services, we support your story. Come and be our guest, become a host, be an author with us. Come and see what we've got. Our next show is... Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Ignite Your Heart and Soul. I'm your host, Sara Troy, and my guest today, a very, very special guest, because we're going to be talking about something really wonderful that means a lot to me, is Kelly Harrell. We're going to be talking about runes, R-U-N-E-S, not the ruins of ruined buildings, but the beautiful stones, ancient stones, probably around 3,000 years old. And we're going to be talking about the Elder Futhark. I'm sounding like a Klingon at the present moment, and I probably have said it wrong. But what does this rune mean? And how do the runes guide us forward in life? How do they show us where we're meant to go? Kelly is an author. She is a soul intense arts. She's from North Carolina, and fortunately blessed that she has not been affected directly by the awful hurricane down there, but it is all around her right now. So we're very fortunate to have her here today. And, it's a reminder, folks, of really how volatile life is and how we really need to pay attention to our now, because by paying attention to our now, we know what to do in the next moment. And how runes are such a beautiful guidance in that. When we throw the runes and we see the way they land, they are addressing the immediate moment. It's not weeks down the road. It is your now. And understanding where you are in your now, it gives you a better understanding of what your next step is going to be. As I said, they've been around for a very long time. I think as old as the I Ching, which is the Chinese philosophy. They were even in Harry Potter with Hermione, wondering if she got her runes mixed up. So they're a part of the culture, but how come we don't know so much about them? How come we don't use them? And how come we fear them? Because yes, some people do. Welcome to the show, Kelly.
Thank you, Sarah. It's good to see you again.
And it's very good to see you, considering what's going on over there.
It has been pretty intense.
Yes, I can imagine. And, we've got a whole series on ecology and what our climate is doing. And it is a series around the change of the climate in the head in order to address the climate change that's going on. And that could be said for anything, couldn't it? We have to start looking at life in a different way, and you present life through the runes. So perhaps maybe you can actually describe what runes are to people. For some people, they don't even know what they are.
Originally, the runes were an alphabet that originated in far northern Europe, and that is the Elder Futhark. That is the oldest alphabet of that region, and it was used widely throughout Europe for hundreds of years and went out of vogue as the more Roman alphabet came into play. But at some point over the migration of the runes, they were attributed this incredibly wonderful mythological story, which was that the god Odin, the Norse god that Viking culture often refers to, although Viking culture is thousands of years later than the Elder Futhark. I think a lot of people don't realize that.
No.
But the mythic story is that the Old Norse god Odin hung on the world tree, the Yggdrasil, and intentionally, this was not something that was done to him. He sacrificed himself to gain these keys into how we could human better. That's my wording. But I think that's ultimately what they are. And the significance is that this was an initiation for him. This was the story of a God who initiated himself to have more wisdom, more insight, higher awareness. And that came in the form of the runes, which he brought into the consciousness of humanity. He gave us an avenue through which to understand and engage concepts about the earth, about earth mysteries, nature mysteries that are, beyond our understanding, but also higher awareness, God level, spirit ally awareness that we could tap into. So they really only came into use for divination far after they were an alphabet. And I think divination is probably the most common understanding of them at this point. I think a lot of people think of them in synchronicity with the tarot, which is wonderfully valuable in its own use. But the runes, far older and far wider use. And for me personally, that use seeps more into timekeeping and seasonal awareness through the runic calendar.
Yes, I mean, I actually knew about the I Ching, which is over 3,000 years old, which I think the runes are around about that, but that is the Oriental understanding the Book of Chants, and kind of the runes, as you say, more European. And it's really more Celtic. So it's really interesting. They both kind of do the same thing, but in different ways. And that's the thing, is the guidance back in those days, didn't Google what we needed to know. We turned to the runes, or we turned to the I Ching, or we turned to the tarot, we turned to other things as guidance. The throwing of the bones. It wasn't fortune telling, it was guidance. The harvest, directions, or wisdom. Many a king would ask the rune leader, whatever, I don't know what you called them actually, but they were the wise ones that gave direction, gave wisdom to the king to make choices. So it was very, very forefront back then, wasn't it? And I think we need to have it more forefront today, because we're flapping in the wind. We have too much information and not enough wisdom.
Agreed. And I think so much of that is lost from our ancestral lines, that the awareness that we're not just plucking this out of thin air. This is something that has been embedded in a component of the human psyche for thousands of years. They're not modern, and yet they have an incredible stamina that I think is still very relatable, very applicable to how we live today. They can still be that guidance system.
Oh, most certainly. I've been in transit for the last year, so I've been living here, there, and everywhere. And in my packing, I kind of had to give up something, and I reluctantly gave up the runes. And I wish I hadn't, because I've had them for a long time. There was always a comfort for me of just being able to throw the rune, kind of, what do I need to know? I'm just a little confused right now. I don't know what to do. What do I need to go? Where do I need to go? And the runes are so brutally honest. And of course,
yes, they are.
Yes, and the stone that I didn't like getting was Hagaz. Disruption. And then it's like, I don't want disruption. But we have to look at disruption as being something good, because if it's shaking you out of something, it's disrupting the complacency, or disrupting the stagnancy, or helping you clean something out in order to embrace the new. Sometimes we look at things and we go, no, but we've got to actually understand, what does it truly mean other than the surface?
Right. And especially with Haggalaz, is it serving us now?
Yeah.
It's this thing that used to be wonderful. It championed us, maybe.
Yes.
And maybe it's time to re-examine that it doesn't anymore. And what can serve us now can't come in if we don't let go of what isn't working anymore.
Boy. Everybody we interview here is in some form of redirect, or has had a redirect in life. And we have to actually understand is that we weren't designed to be linear. The one little step in front of the others, like sheeple barring along. We are exploratory creatures. We love an adventure. We love to be inquisitive and creative. And sometimes you do need the disruption. Sometimes you do need to be still. Is it Issa? The one that looks like the one where it's just be still, no movement right now, which is another one I didn't like getting, but I want to move forward. No, stay still. It's not the right time. And they never lie. It doesn't matter how much we want of something. If we pay attention, they're right. They don't come with an explanation. It's just understand what it is they're saying at the time. If it's not the time to do something, don't do it, because you'll only make a mistake.
I think what you just hit on is why so many people find them unkind. They're
Yeah,
blunt.
they're truthful.
They don't mess around, and they really don't hold back.
No.
And if you can't, somebody recently, just in the last couple of days, said something along the lines of, the runes require you to bring so much of yourself. I mean, yes, they're this font of wisdom, this, ancient connection to, humanity's connection to the divine, but they're really just very indignant around you bringing yourself
Yes.
completely to work with them. Because if you don't, they won't be clear. They
No.
won't inform you. If you're vague, if
Yeah.
you're not committed,
Mm.
that's what you get back. And I think that's off-putting to a lot of people.
Yeah.
We have moved into this place where we want things bite-sized,
Yes.
and they have to flatter us, or we don't
Mm-hmm.
want to hear it.
Mm-hmm.
And we just don't want to, we don't want to face the part of what's hard to hear and what action it requires us to take to make things better. And the runes just don't hold back on that regard.
They want us to be concise.
Mm-hmm.
Don't whiffle waffle. They can't give you, a yes or no. It is direct. So make sure in your articulation of your question that whatever
Absolutely.
you're going to get back, you understand the directness. It's not there to hold
Absolutely.
your hand now, sweetheart, if you do this or that. No, ask your
Mm-hmm.
question. It will give you that answer. If you need to now understand what that answer is, you can ask another question, right?
Right.
But be concise. Be that it's not going to be a two-sided answer, because they can't answer in two sides.
Absolutely. And I think they just hurt people's feelings in that
Yeah,
regard. I think,
yeah,
they're just terribly to the point.
yes.
And we don't deal in that culturally these days.
And I'm a reader myself. I'm a Romany gypsy reader, and I use the runes as well. Um, and sometimes a two-sided thing will present because it's a choice. At this
Right.
junction, it is a choice. You can go this way, you can go that way. And it's, well, which way should I go? And I said, well, I'm going to give you the information, but that choice is your free will. I know if you went down this path, there's this opportunity, that path is that opportunity, but I cannot tell you which path. That is beyond what I'm meant to do. It is now your choice to make, because it's your free will. You've got to walk it. So people don't actually understand that these things are guiding systems, aren't they? They're not the be all and the end all. They're not doing it for you. They're guiding systems so that you can make better choices in your life.
Right. Right. I think the whole fortune telling moniker is unfortunate because, you know, if anybody can truly tell me the future, I would be the first in line for that.
Mm-hmm.
But, the best that we get is these nuggets of wisdom that
Yes.
help us make decisions in the
Yeah.
present so that we are more informed about how we go into the future.
Right. You can see a map for the future of possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That is as far as you can see. Time-wise, you can't read because time doesn't exist outside of our human realm.
Exactly.
And it is, you can see what possibilities are there, but until you're willing to walk them, you don't know. I mean, once you step into that possibility, things can then change because you've now entered it, and it's going to change what it's there for.
Mm-hmm.
This whole thing about, tell me no, I'm going to sit back and wait.
That's a
You
tough
didn't
one.
deliver, Amazon runes.
Exactly. That's perfect.
It doesn't work that way, does it? It's wisdom you're getting. It's divine knowledge you're getting that's going to help you make decisions so that you could be proactive in your decision making and moving forward in life.
That's it.
That's it. And that's as simply it. But it's the understanding of them in a way that you don't misconstrue the meaning. Like, as I said, you get Hasglass and it's like disruption, and you immediately think, oh, everything's going to go to hell. And, it could simply be a thing of clean house or, prepare.
Right.
I mean, we have to use some common sense in actually trying to interpreting what they truly mean, isn't it? Apropos to where we're at that time.
We do. And I think that's where the I Ching is a wonderful example. Yeah. It's a wonderful comparison because, most of the oracles that people work with now, they're very modern. And that isn't to say that they're not powerful and valuable. In the runes, we have this powerful and valuable ancient oracle. And I feel like people are often off-put by not wanting to study the culture.
Yes.
Because, you look at the tarot cards or any deck of cards, and they're beautiful. They're full scenes, they're lush, they're vivid, they're detailed. And for someone like me, a lot of distractions on one card alone.
I agree with you. I'm not
And
a
then you
tarot.
look at, and I admire it and I value it, but it doesn't work for me. But then you look at the runes, and they're just these little etchings that don't have a context.
Something,
because you have to go learn it.
Yes.
You have to go learn that context. And there is a beautiful marriage between understanding the ancient cultural components of the runes and seeing how they distill in these ways that are so on point for how we still live, the dynamics that we still deal with every day.
I think what happened is, if you look at ancient times, this was a norm to look for that guidance in the decision making. It was something that you did in the village, or the elders did, or you did before you went on an adventure. Is it safe to go now? Is this passage going to be safe for me? And it was something very commonly used. And now, as I say, no joke, people Google everything. And it reminds me of, I don't know if you remember a show called Outer Limits. It was kind of a remake of Twilight Zone, but it was called Outer Limits. And there's an episode there where everybody has a chip in their head. So anything they need to know, they just ask the computer. They never have to think or acknowledge. Everything's there. And there's one guy, the chip didn't work in him. And he read and he wrote. And they considered him the fool. And then, of course, the computer is 200 years old. The person that created it hadn't maintained it. He's dead. Nobody knew how to maintain it. All of a sudden, the computer dies, and everybody's lost all their knowledge because they didn't retain it, because it was so accessible at the push of the button. And, of course, he became the wise one in teaching them how to gain knowledge and to read and to write. And I think this, although this was done maybe 20 years ago, it was a great foresight of the Google episode. Now I'll just Google it, and as not retaining information, and also looking at information as being the absolute and not understanding the wisdom in the knowledge or in the information. And we seem to be losing that connection, don't we?
Oh, absolutely. I see this dynamic all the time. Bear with me. It's a soapbox where people say, can I read a book about so-and-so? And I'm like, you absolutely can read a book about that, but you do not get the initiation from it. You do not get the wisdom of thousands, potentially, of years of work that went into the ancestors handing this down, not just to us, but to you, to your ancestral line, handing you the initiations that you need. And you can't get that from a book. You can't get that from anything other than the lived experience.
Participation.
So,
yeah. And I think this is something that's people, we're flapping in the wind. And, we're feeling lost. We rather, like you said with the tarot, which has never been my affinity. I'm a gypsy reader, so it's ordinary playing cards. Overload. We have overload. And so people just don't know how to filter what they need to know because they're overloaded with too much. And I think, the art of being still, the art of breath, the art of going in, tuning out, listening to that inner voice. And, that's the time when you're in that stillness of that inner voice to ask those questions or ask the runes, not when you're frazzled or when you're anxious or this or that, because you're not going to get anything clear. You're only going to get emotion. Right?
You're not. And that comes up for me a lot too. People wait until they're in crisis to try to learn a disciplined spiritual modality. Right. And it's not wrong. You can do it then. You absolutely can. And the instinct to feel that you need it is spot on. Yeah. It's just that it's going to be a lot harder. It's going to
Yes.
be a whole lot harder. That's why people spend decades studying and evolving on their spiritual paths, not
Right.
because they don't have anything better to do
No.
and not because they don't have problems.
Right.
Doing that doesn't mean you don't have problems. It means that when you have problems, you've got a foundation to draw on for how to deal with it in a way
Yes.
that keeps your
Yeah.
evolution
You're
going.
better equipped.
And that's,
Yeah.
that we are starving for that now.
Yes. Oh God, famine galore going on
Agreed.
right now.
Agreed.
Yeah, I've had a lot of people kind of say to me, why aren't my shows 10, 15 minutes? And I'm not here for that attention span. I honor the people that have made it their life work or
Oh,
their redirect or something. They're sharing with us wisdom that they've accumulated over their lifetime. And some people have had that cosmic 2x4, the things that they've gone through, you're surprised that they're still standing. And yet they chose to go through it, to evolve from it, to become a gift to us because of it. And if we
right.
cannot honor that nugget of wisdom, which you're going to get in an hour, if you can't honor that and really understand the magnitude of information you're going to get, then you're not ready for the
Right.
information.
And it's okay to not be ready,
Right?
but it's your responsibility to realize that you're not ready.
And
And
maybe
that
do
if
something
you
about it.
really want that if you really want the information, then what do you have to do to get ready?
Right. Exactly. I don't care how Google, you can't Google, your life. It's great information database, but when it comes down to it, you got to be
Mhm.
interactive and proactive in your own life. It's, we're so good at blaming. It's the government, it's my mother, it's my father, it's my school, it's my this, it's my that. Shoot happens to us. There isn't anybody that hasn't gone through something in life. This is what we're here for. It's how do we stand up to that? Who do we become because of that? How do we go through it? What are we at the end of it? How does it serve humanity? And
Mhm.
that is really
Exactly.
where the true gift is, isn't it? Going through
Exactly.
the process of life, no matter what the roller coaster is.
And exactly what you just said about you're going through that roller coaster experience to survive it and to become better as a person on the other end of it. But then your calling becomes, how do you bring that to the world? What
Right.
what teaching did you gain from that you are
Yes.
now required to take into community? And I feel like the runes, they are deep in
Mm,
understanding the community that you situate in, and not just being aware of it, but being aware of your place in it,
yes.
what your responsibility is to that community. And so many people, I feel like, they feel like their calling has to be this incredibly detailed, extravagant
Yes.
thing, but they don't value exactly what you just said, which is their own
Right.
struggles, the things that they have overcome, because that's what you bring to people. You don't bring to them something that's outside your
No.
sphere of influence or experience. You bring them what you do know, and what you do know is the things that you've overcome, how you've overcome them, and then understanding what your community needs from you as
Right.
a result of that.
As I say, I interview ordinary people doing extraordinary things. And, we're all ordinary people. And the extraordinariness isn't whether you make CNN or Nobel Prize. The extraordinary is how did you step into your own life and become a beacon of light for someone else's?
Yeah. I really do think that is our
Mm.
responsibility.
Mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
because modern shamanism and animism, which is where most of my lens is focused, has really stagnated at a DIY, I don't know, modality. I don't know if that's the right word, but it's really stagnated as a self-help
Yes.
path, and that's not what it is. That
No,
it was never that. And
no.
if you studied the cultural overlays of traditional shamanism, then your calling to service is
Yes.
what's significant. It isn't even your personal experience anymore, and that's kind of ouchy for some people. They want
Right.
to hold on to that,
Mm-hmm. But
but it's
life
what you
is about
do.
service, though, isn't it? That's what
It
we're here
is.
for.
It
We're here,
is.
I always say it's about the village. It's everybody in the village has a purpose, and the strength of that village is everybody's contribution. It's there in times of need, it's there in celebration, it's there as a community, and we've got to start looking not only at our local village, but we've got to start looking at ourselves as a global village.
We do.
And, what's our part to play? We're so good at blaming somebody else, but what's our part to play? What are you here for? Because bottom line, that's why you're here. What's the meaning of life? It's to find out what your meaningful purpose is, that you can be of service to humanity that is in the betterment of all.
Yes. And I feel like the story of the runes is that.
Yeah.
My sense of the runes is, again, very very shaded by an animistic and shamanic perspective, which all of it to me comes down to the healing story, the ability to realize the challenges in your own life that demand that you change, they demand that you grow. And in order to grow, you have to have new experiences, whether it's new people, teachers, new places. And then when you have those experiences, you gain the skills that you need to heal yourself and to do whatever the work is that you're to do. And the progression of the story is always that we eventually have to come home and realize that we're different. And maybe home doesn't like us anymore. Or, maybe home does not accept that we have matured. And dealing with that. I mean, just this sequence of realizing who we are, holding firmly to that, and yet loosely enough to still grow, to do service. That to me is the entire trajectory of the runes.
But when you look at the explorers of the world, they went with tools in their backpack. They met people along the way of different cultures and gained wisdom and more tools. But they carried on exploring. Everywhere we are now is because somebody explored it before us and set a guiding system to guide and invite us all there. Whether it is places or whether it's a state of being, we all need to be explorers because we are a beacon of light for someone else. And having something like the runes keep you on track, keep you centered. As I say, if you throw the runes when you're in a state of flux, you're going to get kind of an answer back at that time that's addressing the flux. But if you can be still enough and calm enough and take that deep breath and truly ask the runes from the heart, from the soul, that's the answer you're going to get that's truly going to guide you forward. Whether you like it or not, don't be afraid of what it's telling you. Because yes, there are some that, can be, I don't want that one. But it's there for a reason.
And that's me sometimes. Yeah. I do that sometimes.
Mm-hmm. And it means that you can't go any further until you've paid attention to this. So there's no avoiding it. There's no going around it. There's no ignoring it. It is saying, address the situation. There is no moving forward at this time until you do, or clean house, or do this, or do that. I've actually, you can't see it because I'm wearing a long sleeve, but I got a tattoo when I was 50. And it is actually of 2 butterflies that are meeting in the middle, and they're forming the eggs, gibu, as they call it here. And it's, the gift of partnership, where, 2 people come together in their wholeness to create a partnership. And this is my relationship with my children, our gift of partnership. And I love the gifu stone. That is one of my favorites.
It is.
And because I love the idea of people in the wholeness coming together. And forming a part. It's not one person sacrificing for the other.
Right.
It's strength of 2 strengths coming together. And this is the thing when we look deeper into the stones. Let's look deeper into some of the stones. There's Wunjo, and oh gosh, I have to admit, I am behind on my runes.
I think some of the ones that people find the most challenging among them is Tiwaz. I know Tier, people say it differently, but I mean it brings up these connotations of battle, of war. But I call it the survivor rune.
Right.
I mean that in a modern context, we're talking about, it's not whether you're going to be in a battle.
Yeah.
You will. You will. Sooner or later, there will be some intense conflict. And you have to have a second wind. You have to
Right. The
find the
strength.
place.
Mm.
Yes. Let's see. I think that Fehu confuses a lot of people
Yeah.
because their emphasis, people say, what does it mean? It means wealth. And that's where the conversation stops.
Right.
But wealth is a lot of things. And in order to maintain wealth, you have to take care of it.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't just show up.
Right.
It doesn't just disappear. Most of the time,
Right.
it could, but most of the time it disappears because you spent it.
Yes.
You didn't tend it. I mean, there's attentiveness. It demands an action on your part for it to stay viable. And all of them, I feel like, have that sense of taking action and self-responsibility.
I got to a lot of the time the harvest one. You see.
Yeah.
And, a lot of the time, and of course, the last 6 years I've been harvesting a lot. And I have an orchard of wisdom here of 2,000 shows. And so there's a lot of harvesting been going on here.
For you.
Or a lot of planting and seeding. But it is interesting what you get is that our impatience wants us to do one thing. And the runes are telling us that we need to do another. And if we pay attention to the runes and go through the process of what we're meant to do, we're going to get where we need to go much faster than resisting and trying to ignore the message.
Let's just pause on that for a second. I mean, really, it's everything, because I feel like so much of the progression of the runes ties into weird weaving, which is this idea that we have a certain amount of influence, and we have a certain amount of things that we cannot influence, that they just will always be out of our reach. But we don't really take advantage of the power that we do have to make an influence.
Right. We don't take advantage. Are we just chasing our tails all the time? I mean, all the answers are there. The reason why these beautiful, ancient, tools have been there for so long and can still be very relevant today is the fact that they are very rooted not only in the earth energy but in the cosmic energy and the divine energy, and they're solid in their truth. They don't need to prove anything, and we're ignoring those beautiful tools that have been around for thousands of years and never guided anyone wrong. Why do we think today that we know better than the wisdom that has been around for thousands of years?
I have an answer.
Okay.
I think we're really disconnected from
Yes.
our roots. I think that we're just incredibly, like literally individually, we have not done the ancestral healing that all of our lines need. But from a collective place, we're disconnected from each other. We're disconnected from our own ancestral roots. And when you put that together, it's fear. I mean, there's just this realm of unknown and fear because we don't know each other. We don't know ourselves. We can't look back because we can't even process now.
You're so right. Hit the nail on the head. We don't know who we are in the now. So how the hell do we know where to go? Right? And we are so disconnected from ourselves, from each other. How can we even connect with other people when we don't even know who we are? We're working so much on the outside, the image, what other people expect from us, what life demands from us, and we're not igniting within our hearts and our souls and our spirit. There's a reason why this calls ignite our heart and soul, because the soul, as I say, is that divine knowledge that comes to you, that resonates with your heart in truth. It goes to your spirit for action, and your mind will know what it needs to know when it needs to know it. We're operating from this head all the time, which is data, which is confusing it. And we do not trust the heart or the spirit or the soul's divine intelligence that gives us what else we need to know. And if we just connect with that and then use things like the runes as our guidance system, we would actually understand a lot more where we're going and who we are and why we're doing it. Because right now it's all in the head, and
It is.
we're screwing things up for ourselves, for the world. for the
We
universe.
refuse. Yes, I believe that.
Yes.
I mean, people laugh and they're kind of like, "Oh, that's extreme," but I'm like,
No,
"No, it is all
it throws things off
connected.
balance.
It does.
Right.
It
Yeah.
does." We refuse elderhood in
I
this
know.
culture, and you can't get to those things that you just named without accepting a role to some degree of leadership. You know,
Yes.
it may not be the magnitude that we think leadership
Right.
has to be, but that acceptance ushers us into elderhood. And from my perspective, we cannot become fit ancestors if we
Mm.
don't do that process. and
Amen. Yeah.
and if we aren't fit ancestors, we haven't done it right. I
Right.
mean, we've only contributed to the problem.
And that is the problem right now.
It is. I
You know,
think it
we're
is.
feeding the wrong thing.
Mhm.
And, you know, when you look at how we treat elders today, how we treat people who come before us, you know, it's this generation, I'll just Google it, I don't need to ask anyone else, you know, forget about the wisdom that they've accumulated. As I say with these shows, these are people that have taken a lifetime to gain their knowledge that they're now willingly share with you. Now, in the olden days, we would sit around that campfire and in hunger devour that knowledge,
Yeah.
devour that wisdom. We've become a society now that's so youth-based that we throw people away after a
Yes.
certain age. We throw
Yes.
people's wisdom away. We're such a consuming and disposable society now. And what we're doing is we're giving away our hearts and our souls and our spirits, and we're wondering why we're hungry.
We are. We are. I mean, there's this sort of expectation to be not judgmental about plastic surgery, and you know, specifically on the part of women who are so scrutinized
Right.
physically, and to have that experience of feeling confident as a result of plastic surgery. That's fine. It's if you need to do that, that's fine. My question is, how is it embracing elderhood?
Mm.
And maybe it is. Maybe for some people it is part of it. I've not walked their path. I can't say, but it's to me metaphoric of this whole cultural tendency to avoid anything about elderhood. And we think elder, we think age, and
Yes.
aging, it means dead.
Right.
And you know, we don't.
Senile, obsolete, annoying. Yes. All of that.
Exactly. And really it's the omission of our wisdom.
Right. The emotion of our wisdom. That is very profound. You know, I will say to people, you know, tune into your emotions, but don't become emotional about them.
Mhm.
You know, we need to be aware of what our emotions are telling us because they're there for a reason. They're indicating something. But if you get stuck in one emotion and you become
Yeah.
emotional about it, you're missing
Yeah.
the information because that information is going to help you move forward. And we become melodramatic. You know, you
Right.
mentioned earlier about soap operas. You know, we become
Right.
our own soap opera. We do. And so I think, you know, what we have to look at is let's be a little less dramatic in our own lives. Let's look at perfection as in the imperfections of ourselves, as us being unique. You know, would I like to change the things about me? Boy, yes, if I could go into a manufacturer, okay, change this, change that, change that. Does that change anything from the inside? It's only exterior thing. Who am I doing it for? To meet your
Mhm.
expectation of what I should look like? If I'm coming from the inside out and I'm exuding my self-love, love of life, love of all, and I'm resonating on that vibration, it won't matter what I look like because it's the love that's perceived first.
It is.
Why do we give love such a bad rap?
It's weakness. People
Mm,
perceive it as weakness. Again, to me, it's symptomatic of cultural wounding that it's easier to just let it go and to keep limping through the day-to-day expectation rather than do the healing work that says this whole thing is wrong.
right. And then, you know, oh, I once loved somebody, I'm never going to love them again. I'm never going to love again. I don't want to get hurt. You know, and for everybody that says that, and, you know, I've been one of those people where I had bad relationships. And my part of that is that I was giving them what I thought they expected of me. I was not giving them my truth of myself. So who
That's a
did they
tough
love?
one.
Who
Yeah,
did they love? It wasn't the true me, because I wasn't allowing myself to be my
right.
truth.
That's a tough one.
Mhm.
And I think that it happens a lot. I think that dynamic of not knowing who we are because we're so fixed on the mask.
Yes. So how can we incorporate the runes in our lives as our guidance system? As something that we learn to respect the elder, learn to respect the elder that we're accumulating within ourselves. How do we bring that shamanism in? I mean, when we're looking at the children of today, I mean, they're all born shamans. I mean, some of these kids today are wiser than, most people at 50, 60,
Mhm.
70, 80. They're just so beautifully in tuned. And you can see the little shamans that they are, and I pray that they never lose it. Nobody ever takes it from them. Um, but how do we refine, our shaman within us, our elder within us? How do we reconnect, and how can the runes help us do that?
I feel like the most advantageous connection point for anybody is where you stand.
Mm,
It's not as anywhere else. It's not in somebody else's teachings. It's
mhm.
not in someone else's experience. It is in the nature spirits of the space where you live, where you earn a living, where you eat your supper every day.
Mhm,
It's the nature spirits that you pass through to get to the mailbox.
mhm.
Those relationships are the foremost ones that you have to start cultivating. And for me, the runes situate in that really well. And the book that just came out, Runic Book of Days, is how to do that.
Right.
How to work through the runic calendar in each rune as it kind of moves through the calendar year, to understand what it means seasonally, and to at the same time observe how that season really manifests for you where you live.
Right.
And when you can kind of take that seasonal wisdom of the runes, this timeless ancient awareness, and apply it to exactly what your observations are every day, the relationships that you feel spiritually every day, then you begin to see that you're the connection point
Yeah.
of both of those things. You are the synergy. You carry it with you everywhere you go. And the runes are a wonderful way to support that sense of self throughout the year.
And it's we all look for something that is our guidance system, and having a book that literally is going to guide us one step at a time. We learn to be still, we learn to tune in, we learn to be more aware. The more we open up that window, the more the awareness starts happening, and you start really seeing things totally differently. But a question I am going to ask, because I can feel somebody asking in the back of my head here, is runes versus religion.
Mhm.
Now, we talk about igniting the God within you, because God is within you. You're made out of the particle of the universe of God, of presence. The runes are the messages both from, the earthlings and the universal God energy. But you've still got people in religious realms that look upon any of this as the demon's work.
Absolutely. I think the distinction is some people need someone else to have filtered this experience of divinity through some sort of lexicon that can just tell them, here's how it works. Here's the way it goes. Step A, step B. It's going to all end up at Z, and you're good to go.
Sheeple.
And
Meh.
well, yeah, and the runes have that, but
Mm,
it demands that you be the person who's being the interface.
right,
You
the
have to show
participant.
up. Yes, you
Yes,
have to actively participate. It won't be handed to you.
right.
So, you can have your own religious experience with the runes, and I would call that direct relationship.
Right.
That's what it's all about for me.
Yeah,
You have to come into direct relationship with everything in your life, from
yeah,
my perspective, to really know if that's right for you.
yes. It's a form of channeling, isn't it? It's opening up to that God knowledge, that divine knowledge, and allowing it to penetrate your very presence, and then connect cohesively with you to actually understand what you need to do. And again, it's not the sit back and wait for the Rune Amazon delivery. It is about, here is the tool to put your car in gear, or the key for the vehicle.
Right.
It is something that allows you to be proactive in your own life and move forward, which is so important. We all want to move forward. We all want to be getting somewhere. Even if you're a person that wants to stay in the same house the rest of your life in one community, fine. But what are you doing in that community that is participating, that is proactive, that is a part of that community to keep it viable and stable and
Right.
alive? I'm unfortunately not a rooted person. I kind of wish I was. I'd love to find a place to settle, but I'm a wanderer. And I'm obviously, I go wherever I go, and everything about me and who I am and everything goes with me.
Right.
We've got to remember, whether we're wanderers or whether we're in one place, we're always with ourselves, and ourselves are fluidity. We need to be in the flow. The wind doesn't stop. The seas don't stop. The current doesn't stop. The earth is constantly vibrating forward. We are creatures of movement, and we need to be in that fluidity of life.
And I think that you can be in that and coexist among people who need the religious component, and it does not have to be in conflict for
No,
you. It might
no.
be in conflict for them, but it
Yes.
does not have to be in conflict for
Yes,
you.
make your own choice, right? Yeah. Yes. And that's very, very important. I have another gentleman on here. It's The World According to Gus, and the Gus stands for God, Universe, and Spirit. And he's a reverend of 40 years, and he's looking at all the different type of modalities that we use in faith to connect to the divine, and that there isn't a one-size-fits-all, and
Yeah.
God is certainly not about hate or damnation. It's purely based in love and kindness
Mm-hmm.
and caring for one another. That is the vibration that the divine works on. So when somebody buys the book and goes through it, this is going to help them, with their own participation, connect to an understanding of what their path is about.
I think so. I think that it's a year-long processional through the seasons, through each. There are 24 runes in the Elder Futhark, so there is what's considered a half month, in which there's one rune for each 2 weeks throughout the year. So it is a full year processional. It's not a quick study,
Right.
but it is something that you can repeat.
Yeah.
And I always encourage people to journal, to write things down, so that you have this journal to reflect on, and you can see the places where each year, when this particular rune, like right now, the rune is Kenaz, or some, I think the original pronunciation would have been Kauna. That is the rune that's coming up as we come into the autumnal equinox in the northern hemisphere, at least this
And that
weekend.
rune means?
It's torch. It means sort of like this little bright spark of light in absolute darkness. And it's kind of the aha moment,
right,
where something, inspiration, lights from within you. And so seasonally, that's the focus right now. And I think that when you realize this is not something that you're just going to rush through and it's all going to be given to you, you can kind of settle into a comfort with realizing every year you get to have this experience this time of year. This is the elemental support that's available to you this time of year. And I think that accumulation leads to understanding your path, knowing what your calling is.
Again, we're in that era of chasing our tails and not knowing, what we're doing, and having something that, we talk a great deal and shows about the breath, how important our breath is. Taking a breath, slowing it down, becoming connected with yourself. When you take a deep breath, your entire chakras line up. You're centering yourself, and then to incorporate the runes at that time, in that center, in that quietness, in that stillness, in that breath, now is helping you connect to the understanding and looking upon it as a support system for what you're going through. So we need people to slow down. We need people to find that stillness, that space where they can take a breath, where they can open up to the knowledge. It isn't like, okay, what does it mean next? No, it's not about that. Everything about it is stop, take a breath, savor. Let it digest. What does it mean to you in your life at that moment? And in that clarification, now you can make better choices as to where to go. These are not quick fixes. Things that are profound take their time to penetrate, digest, and for you to understand. And we have to be willing to give that time, don't we?
We deserve it.
We do. And for thousands of years, it's always been that way, where people took the time to digest. And now we've got everything on speed, fast speed, and where life is whizzing by, and we're going, hang on, I'm not a part of it.
Right.
I'm not a part of it.
But we can't make the connection
No.
for why.
We're trying to get on this fast train. Where is it going? Because we feel it's important.
Right. No
And you know
idea.
what? And go take the horse and cart ride. You might enjoy it.
True.
The tortoise and the hare, right? Yeah. So really, really important. So when people are coming to you, other than buying the book, what do you do for them?
Mostly I do soul retrieval. I do death walking, which some people might know as psychopomp, when they are nearing death and they have some time to kind of get that spiritual awareness that they want to take with them. Or if someone has died that they're close to and they feel like there's some unease around that. I also mentor others, whether that is to be more animistically aware in everyday life, or if they feel called to the role of shaman. I have a 2-year intensive that I mentor folks in to help them ethically come into their path of shamanism. I don't teach you how to do what I do.
Right.
I give you the pieces to understand what you do and what you bring
together.
Yes, yes.
Great. And you do you do rune readings as well?
I do. Oh, yeah, I should say that, right?
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
And for a rune reading, I mean, it's not just a one rune. You probably lay them out in particular ways.
Right. I do it differently. This is to me also a tarot import where people just lay out like 12 cards.
Right.
And I'm like, I don't even know what that is.
Right.
It's just overwhelming for me. I like to talk in depth about what the intention is and talk about the pieces of that are most important and draw runes based on those pieces.
Right.
And then if we need to clarify as we go, we can pull more. And we still might end up with 10 runes on the table.
Right.
But we know why every one of them is there. And there's clarity on how they flow and what they mean to everyday life.
Yeah, I used to do that with the cards. It was, I went through the whole pack. It was building on it to actually understand what the real story is, And that's the thing is 1 or 2 runes may be one thing, but then it's like when accompanied then with something else, with really understanding it, it builds the bigger picture. Right. And that's really what we're looking for, isn't it? We just want to understand what our picture is, so and what part we play in it. But if we don't have the willingness to participate in our own lives, none of this is going to mean anything. So we, first and foremost, we've got to be willing to step right into ourselves, into our own lives. And if we don't like what we see, then fine, don't be despondent and run away from yourself. Good old Haglas, clean it out, sort it out. Don't be afraid of the runes that are telling you time to roll up your sleeves and do something about it, right?
Absolutely.
Very important. We're so busy running from ourselves, and it's like, why? You can't outrun yourself. You're with yourself for the rest of your life. You may as well invest in yourself.
Yes.
You may as well love and nurture yourself, because when you do, you'll live a much happier, more productive, and more purposeful life, and you will enjoy your life. But, it's to each when they're ready, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, important. Well, my dear, how do people get hold of you to book? How do they get your book? Where can they find you?
The book is available at all online retail stores. It's called Runic Book of Days. And you can contact me or find out more about my work through soulintentarts.com. That's my practice, Soul Intent Arts. And I'm on Facebook and all that social media stuff, but I am most active on Instagram at Kelly Soul Arts.
Okay, so you can get hold of her in any way. If you're just, we've piqued your interest and you just really want to know more, or how does it fit into your life, and you still kind of haven't quite understood how the runes work, then reach out to her and just say, I want to understand more, because you're open to that, aren't you?
Absolutely. That would be lovely.
Yeah. And we've got to understand the runes have been around for thousands of years, used for thousands of years as an understanding, as a guidance, as the journey in. And it's really in the last maybe 100 years that we have kind of not paid attention to the wisdom, because we seeked elsewhere. And through that, we are seeing more disconnect, more stress, more discontent in humanity than ever before. And so maybe there's a reason that we need to come back home, folks, and use these beautiful old mediums that are there, that have been a guiding system for so many thousands of years, and understand they've been there because they worked. So it's not them that's the problem, it's us. So it's time to get reconnected and allow the runes to help you do that. Thank you so much, Kelly, for being with us here today.
Thank you, Sarah.
It's been an absolute delight. And actually, maybe can you just give us a rune right now to go with?
Let's see, what can we part on?
What does the audience need to know right now? Aha.
Degas. Degas is understand what brings meaning to your day. Have utter clarity on what you need to say yes to more and what you need to say no to more. And let today's meaning guide you into how to bring meaning into tomorrow.
What a perfect rune to go out on, right? Perfect. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Kelly.
Thank you.
And to other people, to my audience here, please do not be fearful because somebody had a bad rune experience because they didn't understand what the knowledge was. Please understand these have been around for a very long time to guide us, and it's time to come home. It's time to broaden your understanding. Don't get caught in your own limitation of thinking. Open up those channels and explore, because it just could be a medium that really could help and guide you forward. And the book itself, a simple guide, buying the book, taking that year journey with it, and discovering yourself and where you're at and what you're meant to be here to do. What a wonderful gift to yourself and maybe to someone else. So don't hold back. You need to participate in your own life, for all of us. Until next time, folks, bye for now. For more wonderful shows like this, please go to selfdiscoveryradio.com, podcasts, and see our lineup. And if you wish to support us, we have a funded button. Please stay tuned for our next show.